I'm going to use some desoldering braid. Yes, this is from Radio Shack from back in the day. And yes, I did have to give my phone number to buy this. Hello once again and welcome to the Guitar Foster Parent. I'm John McLain. Great to have you along on this debut episode of our brand new project. So we'll be starting a new playlist today for a brand new guitar as we have wrapped up our first project here on the channel. I'd like to invite you to go back and catch up on that project if you would like. But welcome especially to all of our new subscribers here at the Guitar Foster Parent. Appreciate you being along. And for those of you that are new to the channel, welcome in. I would encourage you to watch our trailer video on the channel to learn more about why we do what we do and what we're about here at the Guitar Foster Parent. Well, without further ado, we're going to start a brand new project now. This one's going to take a while. Our last project was not quite as involved as this one is going to be. This one, if you're just joining us and weren't with us last time, is going to be a really unique project that's going to be a Frankenstein of sorts. I acquired this Ibanez body. I was told it was from an Ibanez Gio body, with the only claim that the electronics in it work great. That was the only claim. The guitar did not come with a neck or a back plate, just the guitar itself. And the bridge does not have a tremolo bar. That's easy enough to handle. So we have this. And then I acquired a beautiful, brand new Fender Jazzmaster neck from a gentleman. This guitar has never been used, this neck rather, has never been used. It's in perfect condition. I mentioned before, it is absolutely gorgeous, has a wonderful feel. It has that sanded matte back, which I really like. It's got a great feel. Blank headstock. Ready to be built into a new guitar. This neck was produced in 2021 and it's ready to go. So this will be the general idea for the guitar. Obviously, we're going to bolt up this neck to this guitar and have an instrument here. But before we get to the neck, we've got a lot of stuff to do with the body. Well, why do we do this? Why are we taking these old instruments and refreshing them? Is because I believe that every guitar deserves to be played, and there are many guitars all over the place that, for whatever reason, are not being played anymore. Perhaps they've been upgraded from. You finally could afford that dream instrument, and now the instrument that you've been playing goes in the closet and doesn't see the light of day for a while. Maybe you took up guitar and gave it up, and so you're selling your instrument. Whatever the case, there are a lot of guitars that aren't being played anymore, and there are a lot of people out there that would love to have them. So what I do is I foster these instruments. I check them out, fix them up. If they need be, maybe upgrade them, make them look better, make them play great, feel great, and then I donate them into the hands of somebody that will play them and not resign them to a closet for the rest of their existence. So that's what we're going to do with this guitar here. I mentioned this neck is a pull-off. The guy just wanted a different neck on his guitar. And this baby here was going to be a project for somebody. And he said, look, to be honest with you, I'm just not interested in doing it anymore. And I need the money. So I got it for not much money at all. So what we're going to do today on the Guitar Foster Parent to start off this project is we're going to do a quick inspection of the body. We're going to set the neck aside because the neck, frankly, is perfect. It's brand new. There's not a mark on it. It's ready to go. And it's straight. I did check that before I bought it. However, this body has a lot of question marks, and I will tell you on initial inspection, we talked a little bit about this last time. This guitar has been banged around quite a bit. These Ibanez Gios are an inexpensive line that Ibanez put out, and they were often used for heavy metal music. They're wired that way. This is what I've read about the Gio series. They appealed to garage metal bands for the most part. They retailed in the $179 to $300 range, I believe, for some time. So they're not going to have the highest quality paint jobs. They're not going to have the highest quality electronics and switches, the other components. They're going to be kind of a starter instrument. But we don't worry about that here on the Guitar Foster Parent. Is this a guitar? Yes. Well, sort of. It's part of a guitar. It will be one when we're done with it. But knowing that about the guitar, that's really about all I know. Just some initial observations, other than it's kind of banged up. In fact, there's a part here where they actually took a Sharpie because they removed quite a bit of wood here. Something struck this pretty hard, or it struck something else. You know how rock and rollers can be. But the paint job, it's kind of a metallic black. It has got dings and dents all over it. So my initial impression is this guitar needs a paint job. I don't think that, I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect to pass my inspection, but this one is, it needs some love. So we're going to, for the first time, paint a guitar on the channel. Another observation that I had is that this guitar, unlike a lot of Strat style guitars, and you might refer to this as a Strat copy, although it does have some differences. For example, the input jack is different than the Strat angled jack. This has more of a Gibson style entrance down here. Only one volume and one tone on this guitar, despite the fact that it's got two single coils and a humbucker dual coil pickup. Kind of interesting. It has a bridge. In fact, I got a comment on the channel that the bridge was weird looking. Yeah, I agree with that. It's kind of unique. It does. It has Ibanez. I don't know if you can see that. This guitar hasn't been cleaned. It's been sitting, waiting its turn. You can see it says it's Ibanez stamped into the bridge there. I have not found. Oh, also the saddles say Ibanez on them. I have not found any serial numbers or any other information, but I haven't opened the guitar yet. So we're going to do that today. We've done our kind of initial inspection here. Well, there's one more thing I want to look at. I don't see any cracks or splits in the body, which can be terrible. Now, I do see some rippling in the paint job, but again, I don't expect this paint job to be the highest quality paint job, because this guitar wasn't made for that. This guitar was made to be affordable, a lot like the Harmony we just did. But it can make music. This plastic plate on the back of the bridge area where the tremolo is mounted is interesting. It has a lot of buckle rash, as you would imagine, because it's been worn a lot. But notice the screw configuration. It's offset, which I think is kind of interesting. And that may be true on a lot of guitars. I've never noticed it before. So just something I've observed here. But we're going to go ahead and pull the pickguard off and look underneath. I will tell you, and this will probably show up on the camera, if you look in the groove here in the pickup, you can see signs of staining in the ribbon here that goes around the winding of the pickup. Probably has had something spilled in it. Not uncommon. In fact, it's more uncommon for an old guitar like this it's more common rather to have something spilled than not spilled. So anyway, we're going to go to the workbench now. We're going to pull off with our trusty screwdriver. We're going to pull off the pickguard and look inside. So let's get started. Well, before we get going removing this pickguard here, I want to remind you that if you would like some free swag here from the Guitar Foster Parent, if you will shoot me an email at my email address, john@guitarfosterparent.com, I'd be happy to send you a few of these nice decals that have the QR code on it, along with a handful of Guitar Foster Parent picks, which also has the QR code on it. Free of charge, just something from me to you. So if you would like to do that, just send me your mailing address to john@guitarfosterparent.com, and I'll get those in the mail to you. And would just encourage you to share them around with your friends and so forth. Okay, so without further ado, we do have a shadow from the camera here, but that shouldn't interfere with us too much, because as we go through this, I'll go ahead and put it close so you can kind of see what I'm seeing as we move through the process. First thing we're going to do is take off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 screws off of the pickguard and lift this out. All the electronics should be mounted to the pickguard itself, unless there's any surprises. There'll be a ground wire, and hopefully the ground wire has enough slack in it where we can just lift the pickguard out. We'll have to see. Sometimes they don't. One other observation as I get the screwdriver ready here, I noticed that these screws some of them are like, this one is pretty badly corroded, and a couple of them are stripped. Like this one's got some stripping going on. This one does. This one down here is a little chewed up. So that tells me two things. Well, the first thing it tells me is we're going to get new pickguard screws for the guitar. We want those to be nice and new and look nice. also tells me that someone's been in here before, which is fine. But it's not uncommon. Also, the screws that for the leveling of the pickup height also look like, especially this humbucker has been monkeyed with some as well. So we're going to go ahead and pull the pick guard off now. Let's go. Forgot to mention, and maybe mentioning the obvious, you want to take your time and be very careful. Now, yes, this guitar is going to get a paint job, but there's no sense in being reckless and, just getting in a hurry with this. You don't want to gouge the guitar any worse than it already is. I mean, it's got dents and dings all over it. But, so be careful. One other thing you might want to do is, take some padding if you're just afraid you're going to slip. Like if this was a really nice paint job that I wasn't going to change, and especially if this was a, vintage instrument or something like that, I would definitely probably put some cardboard or something, something hard down here to protect this, just in case we have a tool slippage. But with this guitar, I'm just going to take my time and be deliberate. And but just bear that in mind. Those little things you often will forget about, and then you can put a big mark in a guitar, and you can't undo that. So here we go. All right, so our pick guard is off. I did notice a couple of these screws were a little bit loose, and like I say, we're going to replace these screws, but I'm going to hang on to them because until I put the guitar together for the last time, I'll use these just to tack the pick guard down in the meantime while we're working on it. So let's carefully lift this out, and the reason I want to be careful is because you should always be careful. Okay, well, it's not stuck physically to the guitar, which is a good sign. Sometimes they're like glued down with Coca-Cola or whatever. All right, so we've got a wire here that's holding us up. So let's tilt this guy up and see what we have in here. Okay. Yeah, our ground wire's pretty short on this guy. Pretty short. So here's what we're going to do to rectify that. I'm going to go ahead and pull the bridge off, which we were going to do anyway, because I don't want to cut the ground wire, even though there's a good chance I might wind up replacing it. There's no point in cutting it. But let's go ahead and pull this bridge off here. Now, this is a tremolo bridge, and so you can see the hole right here for the bar to fasten, which will have to be replaced. The way this works, of course, this bridge is mounted on springs, and so when you push the bar down, this part of the bridge, and I probably can't do it with my fingers because it's hopefully very tight, will bend forward, thereby moving the saddles toward the headstock and causing the tremolo effect. Let's go ahead and pull this bridge off, but to do that, I need to remove the springs from the back so that I can lift it off and access the ground wire. So, just like I pointed out, I'm going to put just 2 of these screws back in so that when I flip this thing over, it doesn't try to spill out. Just to fasten this and hold it in place, and then we'll flip it over and we'll remove the back plate and check out what's under there. But see, I'll do this one up here. This is kind of one of the fun things about when you first start out with one of these. It's really kind of like opening up a treasure chest. You don't know what's in there. It could be something really good, or it could be something really bad. Not bad, challenging. All right, let's flip her over. 6 screws here, and examining these screws look pretty good. They don't look like, well, now I say that. Yeah, I think someone's been in here too. We'll go ahead and remove these now. As I remove this last screw and prepare to reveal the underside of the bridge, I'm reminded of these inexpensive instruments, and a lot of guitar companies put these out, and they're often, they farmed out their manufacturer. These are often made in on assembly lines out of substandard or rejected type materials, and they get a bad rap. A lot of guitars, especially guitarists who have more money, and can afford American-made instruments or custom, type things, custom shop type things, we'll kind of besmirch these. But I think despite the shortcomings of these instruments and the corners that get cut to make them, shouldn't everybody have the opportunity to own an instrument and make music? So I like to kind of defend the idea of these inexpensive instruments, and I'm glad they exist. I really am. All right, so this is just a simple plastic plate. As you can see, it's pretty banged up from belt buckle, is how this happens. But it's not broken anywhere. And it's not the highest quality, but it looks like, I don't know, we may look into reusing this somehow. I want it to look better than this, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I'm going to set it aside for now. And now we'll see the inner workings of the back, and this is what I expected to see. 3 pretty beefy springs that hold that bridge down until somebody lowers that bar in the front, and then these springs provide that counter tension. So in order to remove the bridge, we're going to have to take these springs off, and look what I've found. Very interesting. Okay, I didn't notice that till just now. Notice that the springs are connected to leaves on this little copper-colored plate. You see the ground wire? Ground wire comes in all the way through the body and actually grounds to a solder right there. Interesting. I'm not a tremolo guy, so a lot of this is going to be new discoveries for me. I typically don't use tremolos, and so I'm not super familiar. But yeah, that's what they've done. They've gone all the way through the body and grounded that baby with a solder connection right here. That's kind of cool, actually. It's a very secure ground as opposed to, just burying it like for example, on a precision bass. It's typically the wire is fanned out and just pinned under the bridge, which is fine. This is actually soldered on. So what that means is, to get that off, we're going to have to get our soldering gun out and loosen that joint. What I'm going to do first is remove these springs, and I should be able to do this by hand. Yeah, it just takes a little elbow grease and they slip right off. These are going to be a little harder to get to here. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so that spring, there you go. It's got a good angle on it. I mean, it was hard to get out, and you want it to be hard to get out. And then finally, I just noticed something else interesting. I'll show you as soon as I get this spring off. It's pretty tight in there. There we go. Okay, pulled that third one off. All right, so now you can see the bridge moves freely. You see that? And this may be a yeah, I already knew that, but I do this for folks that didn't know that. And so that's how it moves without the spring tension. And so if we flip the guitar back over, you can see that's how the tremolo effect works, just like that, okay? But here's the ground wire right here. And it's connected to this little hook here that is actually screwed in with a kind of a varied tension. You see that right there? Or not tension, but see, like those screws are not even all the way in. It's just kind of pinned up there. That tells me that this is how we adjust the tension of the tremolo, right? If we want it stiffer, we're going to drive these screws in deeper. If we want it to be sloppier, which you probably wouldn't, but maybe if you did, for whatever reason, you'd back them out. I'm thinking just off the top of my head for this guitar, we're probably going to leave them where they are, and then give it a go. In fact, what I'll probably do is count the number of turns when I back those out, because for this guitar to be painted, this really should be removed, although we're not going to probably put any paint on the inside here. We'll think about that. But right now we need to heat up our soldering gun and remove this ground connection. So a couple tools we're going to use. I'm going to use some desoldering braid. Yes, this is from Radio Shack from back in the day. And yes, I did have to give my phone number to buy this. in all seriousness, what this does, it's just copper braid. And what will happen is when I liquefy the solder and I apply this, it will pull the solder into the braid and then harden, and then you basically just snip the braid off once it, and then you've got, and I like to fray it just a little bit to help it absorb the solder out. That way it keeps the solder from dripping down into parts where you don't want hot solder dripping. Right here it's not a huge concern, but I like to be as neat as possible, so that's what this is. You can also use things like a desoldering bulb, which is like a little bulb that will suck the solder up while it's hot and molten. I like the braid. It seems to work as good as anything. All right, let's see if our iron is hot enough. So I'm just going to apply the braid here. And yeah, it is hot enough. And there we go. All right, so go ahead and turn off our soldering iron, set it aside. All right, so now our ground connection, well, it re-hardened. I didn't get enough of the solder off. Let's try again. There we go. Now we got her loose. Okay. Didn't pull enough of the solder off. Okay. Now our ground wire is loose, and the good news is we still do have a little bit of solder on that little, I don't even know what to call this thing. If you know the correct term for this piece here, let me know in the comments. I'd love to know. All right, so we've got our wire here. It's probably still a little hot on the end. Yeah, not too bad. I'm gonna bend it straight so we can pull it through the channel here in the guitar, and looks like they drilled a pretty good sized hole to route it through. So we'll be pulling that on through now. So let's flip the guitar back over and go ahead and remove the pick guard like we started off to do. Ta-da! All right, grab our screwdriver, take out our temporary hold me in place screws. Again, not this. See, this is a point where you could get in a hurry. Because you're like, okay, it's boring, let's get on with it already. You gotta take your time so that you don't do any more damage than this old road warrior has already seen. I love guitars that have, they all have a story to tell. When I did my original precision bass, that you'll see when I move the camera, it's hanging on the wall behind me, and you can see the full videos of that, which really was the inspiration for the channel. The stories that I discovered as I dug deeper and deeper into the instrument really made the project special. And this one is no different. That was an eBay find. This was a find here locally. I actually went over to Fort Worth to buy this from a guy. Went to his work and he brought it in. So it's Craigslist, I think. Anyway, so let's go ahead and lift this off, and now the ground wire should pull out. And there it comes. And I'm going to... Okay, so yeah, the ground wires come out. Now, oh, guess what? Now we're impeded by the input jack. Okay, all right. Yes, of course we are, because the input jack is not part of the pick guard. All right, well, what I'm going to do with the input jack, and as I suspected, it's loose. So these input jacks, you've got this little fastening bolt, little thin, I don't know what these are called, but and then that's what holds the jack in, and then we're going to go ahead and remove this little bezel here. I'm going to hold the pick guard with my hand this time and get around, but see, all we're doing is we're just going to remove these two little guys here. I may have to change my bit. Yeah, I will. These screws are quite a bit smaller. So let's get a different bit. I'm going to take my kind of a pro tip here, not a pro, an amateur tip. I'm going to take my bit and put it with the screws it goes to. And I'm going to select a smaller bit. Let's see if this one may be too small. Let's have a look here and see. Yeah, let's try one a little bigger. Yeah, that's the ticket. All right. So go ahead and put this smaller bit in. Right tool for the right job. And then we're just going to work these loose. And as I suspected, they weren't terribly tight to begin with. Taking our time here. Even though we're going to wind up stripping and sanding this guitar, and boy, I've been doing some studying, because I think I told you before and on another video, I've never painted a guitar before. In fact, I've never really painted anything before, other than a wall, interior wall, or a shed, you know, something like that. Wow, look how long that screw is. It's probably over a ½ inch long. All right. So, so putting a finish on this guitar is going to be an interesting project, and it'll be a mess, and I'm sure that I'll learn a lot and mess up a lot while I do it, but we'll fix it. And at the end, we'll have a pretty cool looking guitar that'll be pretty unique. Not quite finger loose yet. I've been talking about, in fact, I've almost pretty much decided that I'm going to do a matte finish on this guitar. And I'm thinking like a denim blue color. All right, so that just lifts right out. That's in great shape right there. I mean, there's a few scratches on it, but that is perfectly fine. Rub a little polish on that bad boy and it's going to be good to go. So we're going to keep that. And I'm going to put all my parts together on my little work surface here. There's a washer that goes with it. And now here's our jack inside. And so you can see, pretty dirty in there, which is no surprise. We're going to go ahead and remove this fitting here, and then the jack should just pull through the body. You can just do it with your finger. So this is similar to a pick-guarded mounted input jack, except that instead of going through a hole in the pick guard, it goes through a hole in the body. Pretty simple. So now we should be able to just push this on through. Is there a washer there? Yeah, there's a washer in there. So let's see if we can get that washer. May have to just lift the body off to get to that. Okay, so we're going to reach down here. Going to pull on our input jack a little bit. See if we're coming on through. There we go. Now I got it. Okay, so interesting. Put that back. Let's have a look at this jack here. Jack pulls out. I said it goes in. I was wrong. It comes out. Okay. Very standard jack. This is a single leaf jack, which again, I'm really tempted to replace this like we did on the last one. And let me tell you why, especially on this guitar. When you're playing this baby, you've got your guitar cable hanging out down here. It's very easy for it to come out. You want the confidence of something solid. So let's replace this jack with a multi-point jack, just like we did on the Harmony and just like we did on the original Precision bass that we did. Okay, so since this jack is going to come off, we're going to go ahead and remove this so that we can get everything out. So this, of course, is soldered. And this looks like factory solder. Yeah, this is a factory, which, you know, you wouldn't expect this to have been traded out. So what we're going to do is to protect my surface here, which is really just a kind of a heavy beach towel, which I like because it doesn't scratch. And it's what I have down here is I have a piece of tinfoil that I have folded over several times as a heat shield. And what it does is it just provides a nice surface to catch solder, and that's what I use it for. So, yeah, what we're going to do is we're going to heat our soldering iron back up, turn the switch back on, let that heat. Shouldn't take more than a few minutes, and or actually a few seconds. And we're going to remove this jack. And then we're going to put a multi-point jack on. We'll have to order one of those because I don't think I have any. So we'll do that on a future episode. In fact, it will be one of the last things we do electronically because of the way the guitar is assembled. We've got to thread these wires, the ground and the hot wire through to put the jack on. So it's kind of a first in, first out, last in, last out kind of scenario. So we have plenty of time to order one of these. If I don't have one, I'll have to check and see if I do. All right, so let's get my desoldering braid here and see. And I think we're good. And let's see if we've got enough heat here to remove the solder. Yeah, it's starting to soften a little bit there. Okay. Now, often you're going to wind up burning these wires. These wires are small. I will probably wind up replacing a lot of these wires. It's a little hot, by the way. That's what that was. Because these wires are super duper cheap to replace. And, you know, rather than worrying about, see, I really don't need the braid because I'm not, and I'm dripping solder onto, there we go. Turn our soldering iron off. I'm dripping solder onto the tin foil, so I didn't need the braid anyway. So we'll set it aside. All right, so our jack is off, and here's our wires. All right, so these will be to our input, our new input jack that we'll put on, and we may actually reuse, although these wires look to be in pretty good shape. I may just clean them up and reuse them. We'll see. We don't want to spend a bunch of money unnecessarily. But here's our jack. It's probably cool enough now, but you can see this jack uses one leaf, okay, to hold the cable in. And we've talked about this before. The other one that I'm going to use is going to have another point of contact that will hold it in much more strongly and give you a lot more confidence when you jack into your guitar. All right, so this will be a pull-off throwaway. We won't reuse this. I'm really a fan of the multi-point jacks. After you use them, it's hard to go back to these. So I'll set this aside. And so that is done. I'll go ahead and move my aluminum foil heat shield back down underneath. And now, at long last, drum roll, we should be able to lift the pick guard completely off the instrument. Nothing impeding us, and here we go. All right, let's set her aside and just kind of look at the inside of this bad boy. So there you go. I can't tell. I think that's varnish residue. First thing I look for is signs of drinks. Don't see any. I think this is just overspray from, you know, the lacquer, which kind of has a brown look to it. The guitar's not shielded, and I guarantee you the underside of this pick guard isn't either. We will be shielding this guitar. I'm a big believer in that too. It just provides a lot less noise, unwanted noise, and it's not hard to do. But again, to save money, they don't shield these from the manufacturer. Okay, we'll go ahead and leave the bridge on for now. It's not hurting anything. And we'll set the body aside. And now let's have a look at this pick guard and see what we've got underneath. All right, so here's the pick guard. We'll flip her over and have a look. There is a little bit of shielding where the switches and the potentiometers are. And so here's how we're wired up. We've got a humbucking pickup here and two single coils. And you know, you've got your somewhat standard, oh, this switch looks a little different inside than the Fender ones that I'm familiar with. So that's kind of interesting, kind of different. The switch actually seems to function well. It feels good. There's not a lot of slop in it. It seems pretty positive. I don't see, these are obviously factory solder joints. You can tell that this guitar, but you know, they're not the neatest joints in the world. And if you'll look at the volume pot, you know, here you've got the ground on top, which is fine, but you can see, you know, this guitar was not built with a whole lot of, you know, it was not what I would call a custom shop type build. And then you've got your electronics between the volume and the tone pot down here. But overall, my impression is that this guitar has not been messed with inside. The pick guard was probably removed as a curiosity. But ideally, the entire underside of this pick guard should be shielded with either some sort of copper foil or some sort of aluminum. So they actually make custom aluminum, super thin aluminum, we'll call it membranes, that are actually cut to fit the pick guard, which is a wonderful product. And those will actually shield the entire thing. But you know, it's extra money. Copper tape will do the same thing. If you're neat with it, it'll look fine. One thing I did notice, you know, I've talked about I look for signs of spillage. I don't know why, but yeah, you can see there's evidence of a brown liquid that has leaked through these two pickguard screw holes. However, it looks like the spill was probably somewhat localized. Pickup impressions, these two single coils look pretty decent. I don't really see too many signs of, they look pretty fine to me. This humbucker though, I don't know. I'm starting to feel an urge to maybe put something else in here. You know, for one thing, the ribbon around the side has been stained, And I don't want our nice pretty guitar with the new paint job to have a stained and gross looking pickup. So I'm thinking that it might be a good idea to put at least a new bridge pickup in. This is in the bridge position. Okay, so, right, bridge position pickup here. These single coils, what I think we may do after we get our wiring done is test them. And if they're okay, we may leave them in. So overall impression, frankly, it's not as bad as I thought. And like I say, the guy I bought it from off of Craigslist told me that when he had a neck on it, and he did not have the neck anymore, I asked him if he had it, and he'd since gotten rid of it. I forgot to ask him if it was broken. I suspect it might have been, or not straight. In any event, he did say that the electronics worked the last time that he played this, and at least visually, I don't see any signs of shorts or burnouts. Yeah, no, everything looks pretty good in here. The thing that I didn't expect to find and have not found is any stamps or numbers or anything like that, because I always want to know how old a guitar is. So I don't see any signs that we can date this thing or anything, but there are other ways to do that. And I'll probably work on that offline and let you know if I find anything, and if I did, where. The pick guard itself on the front, cosmetically, is not terrible. It's really not. It's kind of boring. You know, it's one ply. It doesn't have a lot of fanciness to it. And if I do what I'm thinking I may do on the body, let's get the body back up here and have a look at it. What I'm thinking I may do on this body is I'm thinking, you know, we're gonna strip this off and we're gonna sand it down to bare wood, and then we're gonna prime it. And then we have our choice of finishes. Gloss is very common in guitars, but one thing that you don't see a lot of that I think would be really cool is a denim kind of color. Now, I'm not talking about making it look like jeans. I'm talking about that kind of color, that indigo-y kind of blue, but a matte type finish. And a pretty fine matte. You know, the fancy cars like the BMWs and stuff that have and Mercedes has they're putting out those matte paint jobs. That's kind of what I'm thinking for this guy. Maybe even a kind of a pearlescent type finish, but I may be getting way ahead of myself. I may not even be capable of doing that, and I'm not going to pay someone, you know, $2,000 to paint this. But that's kind of what I'm thinking on this guy. The reason I mention that is a white pick guard is probably not going to be good enough to back up that type of a style. So I may end up going with a black pick guard, maybe a kind of a brown, a saddle tan color pick guard if I can find one. We'll just have to see. This is not a standard Stratocaster pick guard, so this may be hard to find. I'll have to look around and see. I have some sources of people that make stuff like this. So if I find such a source, I'll pass that along. One other thing that I mentioned in a short this week that's been suggested to me that I am intrigued by, while we're talking electronics, go ahead and get the body out of the way here so I don't knock it off. I've got a little spot down here under the bench where I can set it and it's safe from harm. Pink Floyd's guitarist David Gilmour, a British guitarist, tremendous, he's a legend. Gilmour was a Stratocaster guy, and Gilmour had a modification that he had done to his Strat, so he may have done it himself for all I know. In any event, there's something called the Gilmour mod. And what Gilmour did was somewhere on the pick guard where it was easily accessible with his pinky, the tip of his pinky, he would embed a simple two-way toggle switch. And what he would do is he would wire the switch that would enable him to activate his single coil neck pickup anytime he wanted. He created, he basically just wired a bridge wire through here and made a switch where anytime he wanted to get the tone from the neck pickup added to his blend, then he could just flip this switch with his pinky on the fly and do it anytime he wanted to. Pretty cool. It's called the Gilmour mod. And there are instruction videos on YouTube that show you how to do that. I think that's pretty neat. And it's been suggested that that might be something cool to make this guitar unique and give it a little extra sound that you don't get every day unless you modify one. It's kind of a cool idea. Basically the way it works is you end up boring a hole through the pick guard you fashion a bracket to sync the toggle switch. It's just a single pole switch, and so if you didn't sync it, it would stick up too high and you'd be hitting it on accident. You want it sunk down, and so you just fashion up a bracket to sync the switch underneath, and then you bridge it across to the pickup according to the wiring instructions, a couple of solder joints, and bada bing, all done. So I'm not 100% sold on the Gilmore mod idea, but the more I think about it, the more cool I think it's going to be. I don't want this guitar to take a year to do, although it might be worth it to take a year to do. But on the other hand, I want to get it back into circulation too. It's been sitting in my shop for way too long waiting its turn. And so, but those are just some ideas. So to kind of summarize initial impressions, this pick guard is not in terrible shape, but it's not real attractive either. And as you can see, it's also, I mean, it's not the highest quality. It's a single ply, it's pretty thin. Especially if I'm going to be adding more electronics in here. I'm going to want something a little more substantial, I think. So I'm pretty sure that this pick guard is going to be either replaced or reinforced somehow. This 5-way switch looks okay, but if you think about the thousands of times this switch has probably been turned, and you know how guitar, you've seen them, they don't do this, they do that, and they smack it, because you're usually in a hurry. It's probably worth putting a new switch in, I think. The pots feel great, all right? They feel really, really good. This tone pot especially doesn't feel like it is just as smooth as can be. The volume pot also, it's got a little sticky spot right around 3 or 4. So we'll have to see how it does. My policy on the pots is I'll leave them until they prove they're not worthy. This stuff's easy to talk about. When you start digging into it, it becomes a little more complicated. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap up for today on the guitar foster parent. We've done an initial inspection of the guitar body, and really, I'm pleasantly surprised. This guitar, as it came to me, and for what I paid for it, and I don't ever talk about that, but I will tell you that this was almost a garage sale type price. So this guy just needed some money and was willing to part with this for a very cheap price. I think now the neck I paid a little bit more for, but in the end, this is going to be a bargain no matter what we do, which frees up some budget dollars. I mean, I don't have any budget dollars per se, but frees me up to be a little more daring with things like replacing this humbucker, maybe doing a rewired job, new switch, things like that. The paint job is also going to be time consuming and probably somewhat expensive. I'm sure that some of these finishes are not super duper cheap. So we'll have to look into that. Like I say, I'm a rookie in that on that end, so I don't know for sure. What can you do to help? Well, you can tell your friends about the Guitar Foster Parent. If you're in a band, tell your bandmates. If you're a fan of a band, tell the band. If you are a musician of any type, tell your friends, your music playing friends about the Guitar Foster Parent. And I'd appreciate you sharing along the channel. They can just go to YouTube and search for Guitar Foster Parent. Also, another great way to share us around, if you'll email me, I'd be happy to send you some decals and pics that you can give away if you'd like. Just let me know what your plans are and we'll fix you up with whatever you need. Yeah, and then the other thing that I'd like for you to do is start nominating folks to receive this guitar. I still, by the way, have not placed the Harmony. It's still behind me on the stand, ready to go. I have a few prospects, but if you know of someone that would be a good forever home for our Harmony 2814 project guitar, which we just finished last time on the Guitar Foster Parent, please let me know that. You communicate however you want with any of this stuff at john@guitarfosterparent.com, and I'd be happy to hear from you. Also, keep the comments coming. I love the comments, both positive and negative. If you have an opinion, you think I'm going down the wrong road with something I've suggested, I'd love to know your thoughts. I really, really would. I'm not a pro, and I believe in the hive mind. I think if we all get together and knock our heads together, we can put a pretty cool instrument together. And I'd love your suggestions, your warnings. If you've been down that road and go, oh, make sure to check that. I'd love to hear that. So keep those comments coming. I love them, each and every one. Thank you so much for watching The Guitar Foster Parent. We will be back next time, and we'll dig in a little bit into more of these electronics. I'll do a little shopping and some more thinking about the electronic arrangement here. We'll talk a little bit more about the Gilmore mod and what that'll take. And then I'm going to also come at you with some information about guitar finishes and maybe work up some ideas on how we're going to get that accomplished. We'll obviously not be doing that process in my studio. We'll rig up a paint booth of some kind down in the garage. May have to find me a refrigerator box or something. But we'll rig up something and get this done. Should be a lot of fun, and it should turn out great. Thank you so much for being a part of our show today. If you would, please like and subscribe to the Guitar Foster Parent. Share it around, and we'll see you next time on the Guitar Foster Parent. Bye-bye for now.